Good to go, Mike.
Okay, this is a meeting of the General Services Committee, and on the agenda is the consideration of Resolution 273121, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Albany honoring the life and legacy of Warren Adrian Mackey and renaming a part of Livingston Avenue in his honor. That's the first item on our agenda. There are two other, well, there were two others. The one regarding the update on sidewalk snow removal is going to be rescheduled into April. And then following our discussion on this resolution, there will be consideration of ordinance 4.3121 regarding lead water pipes. So we're here to consider the resolution honoring Warren Mackey. I had the honor of knowing Warren Mackey. I remember, I think the first time that I dealt with him was when they were going to take down the pedestrian bridge over the Arbor Hill School. I was on the General Services Committee then, and Warren became very involved in assuring that we had a replacement for that bridge. And then I have met him at various times since then, but I was impressed with his advocacy, with his successful advocating on that and many other things. So I see we have a number of family members here to comment. So I see Denise and Madison Mackey. Which of you wants to go first? You're muted.
Am I off mute now?
You're good.
My other daughter, Michaela Mackey, will also be speaking as well. And Mike, thank you for that introduction. And I'd like to thank you as the chair of this committee, as well as the bill sponsors, Councilman Janelle Robinson, Kelly Kimbrough, and Councilwoman Joyce Love. So the street naming, why? And I was going to start with saying, it almost seems funny to explain who Warren was and why he's so deserving, because I knew I could probably turn this discussion over to anybody on this Zoom and they would surely have something to say about a story of Warren, about how he touched them or how he helped them. Bear with me, I have to get through this. He was lovingly known as the mayor because he dedicated his life to being everybody's friend and someone anyone could talk to. He raised my daughters to appreciate two ends of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum was to talk to everybody, even the person that washes the floors or opens the doors, because he was one of those people that washed floors and he took pride in buffing and washing floors. And he also taught them on the other end of the spectrum to know everyone. He used to say, don't wait to need them to know them. It's better to know them and not need them than to need them and not know them. And with those two spectrums, he became genuine friends with everyone. Friends with every mayor Albany's had in my 17 years of being married to him, with Mayor Jennings and Mayor Sheehan. He had a personal friendship with every judge, with every fire chief, with every police officer, many of the common council members. He was a trusted partner to everybody in the community. He's a person that loved his community. He demonstrated on a daily basis by always trying to help others advance the community at large or them as individuals. And he was viewed as somebody that everybody could listen to. He was somebody that would tell it like it is in the efforts to try to advance the city and advance people. Everybody knows Warren for his singing. He would sing at every venue that he possibly could relative to the city. You'd often see him at the MLK Day, the city events, the inauguration for officers, the ceremony where people became US citizens. The naming of the street is important to our family because even though our family lived in Guilderland, he never left 223 Livingston Avenue. In fact, I will share with you that early in our marriage, it was a point of contention. He didn't want his name to be on our home. He didn't want his residence to be Guilderland because he never wanted to lose his right to vote for his community in his neighborhood. So his residence always remained 223 Livingston Avenue 17 years later in our marriage. I don't know all the details, but I remember in recent years him advocating about the softball field. And you know why? Because it was an important place for kids to have a safe, healthy, fun environment. And that's because that's where he got his first job when he was a young boy as a bat boy. I remember him speaking to the police department. He ran out of the house one night because there was something going on about changing traffic directions. And he knew the easy path that people would buy drugs around the street corner and have an easy access to get on the highway. And he was adamantly opposed to it. So he jumped out of the house to go speak to somebody about it. He didn't physically live there when these things were going on, but he cared. It was his home, it was his neighborhood, and it was where it will always be his street. Warren didn't need a political office to accomplish the little things that he did for everyone. And he doesn't need the street named after him because I know that he's carrying the love for people in the community in heaven. We joke around now saying that we know that he's already established himself as the mayor in heaven. For his family, however, that still lives on Livingston Avenue, and they still own 2 homes there, this would mean everything to them. And to us, it would be a great honor for Warren. I also wanted to share with you that in addition to this street, our family has started a foundation. It will become a not-for-profit organization. I've written the bylaws and I'm working on the 501c3. It's called the Warren and Denise Mackey Foundation. And 100% of charitable contributions will be focused in exclusively the Capital District area, targeted for youth, heart, and cancer support. And it's going to be focused on the underserved community that Warren loves so much. So we look forward to keeping his legacy alive and giving back. In the street naming, I think it's just a wonderful gesture to give back to him for all the good works that he's done paying it forward. So thank you. And I'd like to give the opportunity for my daughter, Madison, to now speak.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Hello, I would just like to first say thank you so much for this opportunity for my family and I to be able to speak about my father. One thing that my dad really loved was the Albany community, and he took pride in making his community a better place. And before he passed away, there was just many various things that he felt needed to be done in the community, and he wanted to be present within it, having everyone know about Arbor Hill and its importance and the history behind it. And the community just really meant a lot to him. So I would just like you all to take that into consideration with the street naming.
Thank you. Does your sister want to comment?
Yes, I will pass it over to my sister right now.
Okay. You're muted. Okay.
So if I were to say 3 words to describe my dad, it would probably be the most empathetic, persevering, and most intelligent person I've ever met. My dad works a lot with the schooling community. He wanted kids to go to college. He raised millions of dollars for inner city kids to go to college. And also he cared so much about education. He wanted people to know the ins and outs of they can have a way out. They don't need to go selling drugs or running the streets. They can go and get a higher education and they could persevere into their life. And my dad always wanted to help people, and my dad worked very close with the schooling systems. And if a kid needed $1 to go on the CDTA bus, my dad would say, "What's your address? I'll bring you home." Or if they needed $2 to go out to eat, my dad would give them 10 and say, "Get yourself something nicer." And even when kids didn't have clothes, my dad would bring them home and open up our home to them. And he would provide for them at Christmas time so they could have presents underneath their tree. My dad was just the most loving, caring, and smartest person I've ever met. And I think that 223 Livingston Ave being renamed after him would just be a small token of how big my dad actually was.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking your time and coming to tell us about your father. The little that I had dealt with him, I remembered him well because he reached out to me when they were going to take that pedestrian bridge down. Jamel, you're the sponsor. Do you want to say anything?
Sure. I want to thank you, Councilman O'Brien, and the entire committee for taking this this resolution up in such a expedient manner. Enough has already been said. Uncle Warren, as I referred to him, was larger than life, and he impacted so many, and he gave to so many. And we felt that this is just a small portion of what we can do to solidify and honor his legacy here in the city of Albany.
Are there any other council members? And also Bill Trudeau is here. He's our engineering director for traffic. So any other council member who wants to comment?
Yes, Mike, I would like to make a comment. It's an honor 2 times for me because, I lived everything that was said about Warren. Warren was a couple of years older than me. So quite naturally, he was someone that I automatically looked up to. And you know how you look up to a person for so long, you don't even realize that, it's a lot of similarities. And so I think that it's, we're still all dealing with the loss of Warren, and, many of his accomplishments will forever live on. Let me say that. And, for his name to be on a street is one of the highest forms of a thank you for the service that he paid to the community and to many people. I think that you could have a whole bunch of people come up here and talk about Warren, and there still would be stories to tell. That's how impactful he was, and not only in Albany, everywhere that he went. So I think it's a great gesture, and I just wanted to say to the family, I think that he would be proud to see the way that you represented his life today. And
Thank you.
my prayers are with the family, and R.I.P. Warren. Thank you.
Jack?
Mike, I just want to give a quick story about Warren. Last year, I was refereeing the A semifinals up in Glens Falls, and I come out to the court, the 3 referees. All of a sudden, I look over. Warren is like talking to everybody in the stands. I'm like, there's Warren. That's who he is. Influencing, talking to everybody throughout the state, the capital region. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys. What a great guy he was. Everywhere.
I did have a question. The resolution doesn't specifically spell out what the sign will say. So I guess my question would be to the family. Did you want to use his full name, with the middle name on it? And I guess the question for Bill Trudeau is there any set way that you normally put up a sign? The resolution just says name the street in his honor, but I guess it's a pertinent question of how exactly should the sign read.
From the family's perspective, we would appreciate it saying Warren Adrian Mackey. However, if the visibility of it aesthetically makes it stand out more, I'd like to just use his middle initial. So Warren A. Mackey.
Okay. And Bill Trudeau, can you communicate with the family about if there is any problem with how the sign is actually spelled out, and kind of keep them in the loop as to making the sign and getting it up?
Absolutely. Actually, the mayor's office reached out to me. Dave Gallen reached out to me a little while ago about doing that. We at traffic engineering had an unfortunate loss of the individual that made our signs. He
Oh.
passed away. He passed away in his office back in October. So we are still looking for a sign maker, but I've been making the signs myself since then. So I'd be happy. And I too knew Warren. He would show up in my office. He would just show up to have a conversation, and it was always a laugh. It was always a laugh, and he always had something to ask, but it was always a laugh. And I was happy to help him whenever I could. Bear with me. Give me a little bit of time. I'm actually off today and tomorrow. I get back into the office on Monday, and I'll get over to the shop, and we'll see what we can do to figure this out and get it taken care of in Warren's honor, and for you, the family as well.
Thank
So
you so much.
we'll be in touch with the mayor's office.
Okay, and if you need to contact me to verify correct spelling or anything, feel free to reach out. The council members that supported this know how to reach
Will
me.
do. I have the paperwork from the council and the resolution, and we'll get working on something. We'll have something out. I've got to put together a mock-up, so we'll figure something out.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.
Jack, did you have another comment? Does anyone else want to comment with regard to the life of Warren? If not, I will make a motion for a favorable recommendation to this resolution, naming a portion of Livingston Avenue in the honor of Warren Mackey. And Jack seconded. Is there any further discussion on the issue? If not, we'll take a vote. So all in favor of this resolution of renaming? So
Unanimous.
it definitely passes. So thank you to the family for coming to this and reminding us of what a fine person that we have lost, but his memory has been a blessing to us and will remain so forever.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
So we will now proceed. We need JR, is the water commissioner available to us?
Okay, our family
I'm
will log
gonna
off so
sign
you
off,
can
folks.
finish conducting
Okay.
business, and thank you again for everything.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you very
Have a
much.
great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
So if the water commissioner is available, we'll bring Joe Coffey in, and he will talk to us about ordinance number 4.31.21.
He's not in the waiting room, and I'm pretty sure he got it. So,
Yeah, Danielle confirmed that he was coming.
right. Give me 1 second, Mike. Sorry.
Okay. And Kathy and Kelly, we have to schedule in April the discussion of the equipment that they were putting out RFPs for crosswalk, sidewalk, and bus stop, ice and snow cleaning. And then also, Kelly, you have a resolution honoring a street renaming, and we schedule that for the same day in April that we have the other general services matter. If you could kind of give us some available dates.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
So I was wondering, with the $80 million, I hope the city can relook at its street and sidewalk repair list and maybe expand it.
But get
That's
us
what-
sidewalks if we don't have
Pardon?
them. Give us sidewalks if we don't have them on our main thoroughfares.
Yeah, to create sidewalks. where
I
they
brought
don't
this
exist.
up all along. I knew the money was coming, but
Yeah. So hopefully a process. I believe the mayor has, I saw the announcement in the paper that there were 2 people that she was appointing to kind of head up recommendations of how to utilize the money, and then eventually that would come to the council. But certainly I think, each yearly list of street repair never meets the need. So if they have the extra money, that will be one of the good ways to spend it. So maybe we should talk with Sergio about working on that to make sure it doesn't get, forgotten in the spending priorities.
there was also something in it about broadband, so that might help with
Yeah.
Lucy's thing.
Yeah.
Commission.
And I also read where they're going to start work on the Skyway walkway this or next month, and plan to have it finished by the end of the year. So JR, do we have Joe Coffey?
He's not here yet. Danielle and I are trying to reach out to him right now because he did accept the meeting invite when we sent it out yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm texting back and forth with him, and he says he received an email that it was canceled.
No.
I explained that DGS was canceled and that we were expecting him. So waiting for him to respond.
Up here he is.
Okay, good. Hi, Joe. You are muted.
I'm off. Yeah,
The only part of it that got canceled was the discussion on snow removal and crosswalks. And,
don't know. It just it said meeting was canceled and I removed it from my calendar. How can I help you?
We have a discussion on ordinance number 43121, and that deals with lead pipes. And so maybe you could just explain the changes to us a little bit.
Well, as far as I can tell, the code has had lead service pipes in it since probably it was written. And lead water pipes haven't been made for probably 30 or 40 years. So we thought it might be a timely place to update the code to show that we really are only allowing type K copper water services in the city. Now, some other communities allow plastic. We're not there yet. I think we just want to stick with the copper, Mike. That's and the committee folks, council members. That's really the standard universally. And it's probably the first step that we want to take with the city to initiate what will ultimately be a replacement of all the lead water services in the city over the next, God knows how many years it's going to take, because we probably got 10,000 of them that are still in place. The EPA came out with new lead and copper compliance rules this past year. Frankly, it's not quite as aggressive or ambitious as we thought it might be. So we are not kind of forced into a mandatory replacement of the lead water services. But we are looking to try to get with the water board funding a little bit more ambitious replacement program that we've actually started to undertake in the past 2 years. Some of the council members may be aware of the fact that when we've had capital projects that DGS has taken for street reconstruction, we've actually gone in and replaced old water mains We did it on Orange Street last year. We've done it also where we've just on Elberon Place where we did a main replacement a couple years ago. So slowly but surely, we're picking off 10 here, 20 there, but with 10,000 to do, it's a long road to hoe. So, but the first step is really to try to just update the city code to reflect the fact that we haven't really allowed or permitted lead water services since probably 1940. So that's really what this particular proposal is about.
So a few years ago, you folks did a study, and I was wondering what the results of that were generally and how many people participated. I participated, but I never got notified of whether there were any traceable lead in my water.
Well, if you did, I was pretty sure that we sent results for all the people who provided samples to us. And what
Yeah,
that,
I provided, yeah, they sent the 2 containers and instructions the different times to take the samples, and I sent them in. That was about a year ago, but I don't remember getting anything back. But I'm curious whether I'm sure you got results of most people, and how acute did that indicate the problem is with old water services in people's houses?
part of the program that Mike's alluding to is we are required as part of our lead and copper compliance sampling schedule. We sample only required to do it every 3 years. And that started back in 1991. We did it every year, and we were proven to be in compliance with corrosion control. And a lot of what we're kind of talking about is like what happened in Flint, Michigan, where they had a lot of high lead concentrations in the samples. We've been fortunate in the city of Albany that with the alcove water supply, we have really no background lead, and any lead that shows up in these sampling is going to come from something that is leaching out of the lead water service, or in some of the lead solder that might be in the plumbing fixtures in the homes. And so what we do in Albany for corrosion control, some communities add these phosphate chemicals to the water. We add lime. And so what we do is we bring the pH up to about 8.7, 8.8, and that allows, as the water flows through the system, it deposits a very thin coat, very fine calcium coat on the insides of our cast iron mains and ductile iron mains, and also on the lead water services. So as long as we maintain that corrosion inhibitor, if you will, in the system, the lead does not leach out of the services. So since we've been in compliance, we're only required to do it every 3 years, Mike, but we've actually been doing it every year. And
Yeah.
we ensure that we really are trying to do only lead water services and not have any copper in there. And we're trying to spread it out through the city, particularly in some of the older wards, to see if we have any trends that are showing that some of the plumbing or piping may have higher tendencies to have lead concentrations in their water. Now, the way it's set up for compliance is there's an action level of 15 parts per billion in the sample. And as long as 90% of our samples are below that number, we're okay. And in fact, our 90% number has been down like the 7, 8, 9, or 10 parts per billion number. So we've been always well in compliance. And this is with the first flush. So as soon as you get up, you don't use your system for like 8 hours. And then the way the sampling used to be is you turn you're pouring drinking water out with the first turn on, if you will, the first flush of the system. And that would give you tendency to have the highest amount of lead in the system. Interestingly, with the new lead and copper program, they're saying let it run for a few minutes before you take the sample, because that's really going to be more representative of what you would typically see. That's going to actually make your lead numbers probably come down quite a bit, because a lot of cases where you've had the first flush could be 7 or 8 parts per billion, you could let that water run for a minute, take another sample, and it'd be like 1 part per billion. So it's kind of interesting that that's kind of what they're doing. In any event, we're going to continue to do the lead and copper sampling that we do now. And the water, we just went out and financed $25 million of new borrowing for our 5-year capital plan. And we're going to take $2 million of that and dedicate it to the lead water service replacement. So that's going to help us do some of the lead water services that we're going to replace when the DGS is, when we're going to do some water main or service replacement, when DGS is doing full street reconstruction. We've actually selected maybe 2 or 3 smaller distribution projects that we're going to replace the water mains like we did on Orange Street. We did them up on Briar. We're looking at maybe a University Place where we've had a lot of broken water mains. So we're trying to find areas that we've had a high percentage of broken main breaks and then kind of replace those. So when we replace those, we're actually taking out some of the lead water services. So some of the money that we're borrowing is going to go to that. And we're also beginning to work with a program that at some point, probably in the next couple of months, will come to your committee and talk about a program that the water board will ultimately approve that is going to say, hey, look, if you got a problem with your water service, we don't want you just to replace half of it, whether it's inside the shut off or outside the shut off. We really want you to replace the whole water service. We're not quite there yet how that's going to get implemented. We certainly don't want to put any hardship on folks. So we're talking with Faye Andrews in the community development to see, we think there might be some money available through their existing grant programs to help some folks that have hardship to help replace their water services. We already, the water department, even though it's not owned by the water department, if there's a leak on the outside of the shut off, we replace that, no cost to the homeowner. And that's kind of a gimme because frankly, we don't really own it. But we're going to continue to do that. So the thing is, if we replace a leak that's on the outside, we still have lead on the inside. And those of us who have been following this, and I think, Tom, you and I may have talked about this last year, there's a study up in Canada that actually showed if you replace only half of a lead service, you've disturbed that lead service enough where if any of that protective coating that might have been on the other half, it's not necessarily as, it's not there as well as it was before. So you might actually be causing some elevated lead in the water services. So that's one of the things that we want to think about. The other thing that we're going to look at is for people that when we sample their, if they participate in the sampling program, or if they have us go out and just do a sample, they have a private sample. If they find out that their lead, if their lead in their drinking water is over the action level, we're going to give them a filter, and we're going to give them cartridges to put on their primary drinking, which is probably your kitchen sink, and really have that point of use where we can make sure we knock the lead off. And a lot of times we have where the sampling was done before, they said only do it in a single family houses, which was kind of dumb when you think about it, because most of our lead services are probably going to be in the multifamily houses that are in the older parts of the city, which probably tendency have the highest amount of lead. So what we would do in a situation like that, we would go into that 2 or 3 family house, take a sample, and if any one of those show that they have a high lead concentration, we would provide filters for all of the residents, all of the tenants in that particular multifamily place. So that's part of a program that we're still kind of putting all those pieces together, and we'll bring that out to your committee, hopefully in the next couple of months, because we want to roll it out as a broader lead service replacement that we want to commit to in the water board to replace all these services by 2040 or 2050. That's a heavy lift for us, but we think it's something that we need to do because frankly, it really is a public health issue. So sorry for rambling on a little bit, but that was to really explain the context of what we're trying to do.
It's interesting. Does anyone have any specific questions of Commissioner Coffey? Otherwise, I would, and do we have anybody in public comment?
Tom
has a question.
Yeah, Jack.
No, Tom has a question.
Oh, Tom. Okay.
Joe, that was an excellent talk that you just gave. And one thing that you said, and I got a little bit nervous when you said it, is copper okay? I always heard copper is antibacterial and it's really good as for providing water service. But I thought you might have said something about the federal government and copper, but I was just curious.
No, if I did, I misspeak, but copper is certainly probably the most widely used material in water services, because of its inertness, as you talk about, it's long-lived. It's not really subject to corrosion. What I did say is that some communities actually allow PVC or plastic water services. We're not there yet. And for those of you who know my deputy, Bill Simcoe, Bill's a traditionalist. He really wants to stay with the copper, and it's a tough argument to go against. So that's really what we're looking at this point. And Mike, why we're suggesting that the ordinance we're talking about just really get the lead out, so to speak, and go with the type K copper.
Yeah, do people understand, I know it about how bad lead is, especially for children. Is that something that our citizens know in Albany? I'm just wondering, do we continue to educate, or I'm just curious about where we're at. Does the general public know how bad it is to have lead in the thing? We don't want to scare the hell out of people, but if you have children, I think it's really good that we take care of, getting rid of the lead.
Yeah, I think, Tom, for the most part, a lot of the exposure probably for our children is in Albany, probably more through lead paint, and the lead dust and stuff like that. And we have put a lot of material out on social media. We've had inserts in our water bills. We've had specific handouts that we've provided when we did the city hall on the road. And I think the awareness is it, and certainly the issues that came up in Flint, Michigan, elevated that awareness to the general public. It just into a huge level. So we're going to continue to do that. Again, it's kind of insidious that you drink the water, you don't smell it, you don't see it. So that's why the testing is very important for us, to make sure we spread the testing out, and we try to find and look for areas that we may have some tendencies where we're seeing higher lead concentrations than others. Actually, we're pretty lucky because of the corrosion control plan that has been in place for a long time. We've been very fortunate to have relatively low lead sampling results throughout the city, but we need to do more testing.
And I got two more fast questions. When we were doing the meters, did the people putting in the meters make note if it's a lead service bringing in the water? Do we have that type of data? I know it was probably
we did the questionnaire. I think we sent the thing out with water bills. So we sent, I don't know, 20-some thousand samples out. We got about 10% response, which I think is pretty good. And of the 10%, it was 39% was lead, which is prorating out to 9,500 lead services in the city. So we think we're pretty close to what we were looking at on the records from the assessor on when the homes were built. Some services have been replaced from the time these homes were built. I know, like my house here at Cardinal Avenue was built in 1929, and the service was replaced probably about 12 years ago. So I have copper coming into my house. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to do it as part of the city's program to do the residential, the permits that they give out. So we're going to try to work with codes to be able to do some determination on what the water service is coming into the meter when these permit inspections are being done every year as well. So that's just another potential to find out.
My last question, I saved the best for last, but I had a long conversation with my son's dentist. And I know Albany is one of the few municipalities that don't fluorinate the water. Is that still such a hot button issue that it's something that we shouldn't address in the next few years? I was just wondering what your thoughts on it are.
My dentist practices in Guilderland, and I see him often. I know him pretty well, and we got talking about fluoridation. And he says, I can tell you, Joe, when kids come into the office, I can tell you the kids that live in Albany, and I can tell the kids that live in Troy, just by looking in their mouth, because one community fluoridates and the other one doesn't. Now, Tom, not for nothing, but fluoridation is still, as we call, the third rail of issues. And I'm 71 years old, but I still want to work for a few more years. I don't want to get shot or or whatever, but it's still a difficult conversation that we have with folks. There's so many other things that we have in the city that we're dealing with. But, interestingly, the cost to add fluoride to the water is relatively small. It's just, essentially it's a very simple chemical addition, like we would add chlorine or any other chemical to help treat the water. But there's a lot of education we need to do with the public. And we see it just in a timely manner now with the reluctance of people to get a COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with flu shots, COVID vaccines, fluoride in the water. It's a process that I'm sure we all want to do it. I know the mayor was probably at some point we were thinking about when and if it's the type of program we can roll out, but we've got a lot of work to do. Certainly, we need the support of the council, all the council members to do this. And that's, I think at this point, though, to be perfectly honest with you, our primary challenge is in greater public benefit is probably to get the lead services removed. To be honest with you, Tom.
No, I got it. And it's an election year, Joe, so I got it. But
Even if it's not, it's gonna be sometime, so.
Yeah. And I think we should address it at some point. Thank you so much. You gave us a lot of good information tonight.
Yeah, I apologize for not coming on right away. I guess
Yeah, well, yeah, we had to cancel because Frank Cioli, I guess, had an injury and he couldn't make it. So, but we're happy that you did make it. Are there any other questions? In that case, I will make a motion for a favorable recommendation on ordinance number 4/31/21. And look
I'll
for a
second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that motion? So can we have a vote on that? Okay, it passes. Well, thank you all for coming, and we'll be scheduling a general services meeting in April because there is a street naming. Kelly is sponsoring for Mr. Sieber, and we have to reschedule the follow-up meeting to have Sergio and Frank discuss the RFPs that they were putting out for snow clearance on sidewalks, crosswalks, and bus stops. So I would make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, thanks.
Have a good night, everyone.